All right. Then let's get started with the third talk on the Type 3 online community event, track 1. I'm very excited to have Helmut Hummel with me for this talk. Before we get into his topic and what he's going to talk about, I will quickly remind everybody about the registration process. So in case you are just watching us on YouTube right now and haven't registered yourself to the event yet, you can still do that. Just click on the registration link in the video description or visit our website on t3oce.org. And when you register to the event, you get access to our chat infrastructure where you could join the chat room for this talk and ask questions that we will then come back to after the talk in the Q&A section when I will present your questions to Helmut. And after that, we will stop streaming the session and you have the opportunity to join the Jitsi call and talk to Helmut directly if you so desire. So let's get started. Helmut doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. He is a long time Typo 3 core contributor and famous for his Typo 3 console package that is used widely, and he is one of the driving forces for composer support in the Typo 3 world and present on many Typo 3 camps, and at least I am used to his sessions always providing something to learn for me. So I'm sure that's no different today. But today's talk of Helmut will not be a technical one, at least not directly. He will talk about our responsibilities as open source developers, like more in general. His description says, or the description of his talk says, as developers, our day job is to create things for other people, being customers or users of the tools we build. Helmut will try to make the point that it is not enough to make the things we build just work for us, but that it is our responsibility to consider the needs of other people. While there is a million ways to approach this responsibility, he will highlight how developing software is a political act, whether we perceive it as one or not, and what this means for our responsibility to build good products. So a very interesting topic, and I am very excited for it. Please put your questions or remarks that you might have into the chat room. We will come back to them later after Helmut is done with his talk. Now, just relax and listen to the presentation. Spam the clap emoji. Give a big round of applause for Helmut. And with that, I say, Helmut, that's your talk now. Have fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Daniel, for this nice introduction. And before I start, I want to give a big shout out to the team who organizes this event. I think that's it's a great event, and it's I'm pretty sure it was a great effort to organize it. And what I experienced was just kindness and supportive actions and very professional organization. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, welcome everybody to my talk. I'm excited that you want to hear about this topic. I'd like to welcome you on my stage here in our kitchen, the Corona stage. And yeah, I want to talk about something different today. And or different, well, sort of. It's like Daniel said, it's not a technical talk, and I always enjoyed talks similar to these non-technical, but even non-technical events from other people very much, but never really had the guts to do something like this myself. So it's a premiere for me. It's also very, for me, it's a very important topic. But as a short disclaimer, please note that these are really my own opinions, my own views of things, which I hope are well-founded. But what I want to try with this talk is, to raise awareness of this topic and open the field for a discussion. So it's not like I'm staying here and saying, okay, this is right and you have to do this or that, but rather this is my suggestion how to approach things or how to think about things. All right, so let's start. Okay, so how did I get the idea, or what was the impulse to doing this talk? Well, in the beginning, there was a tweet. I tweeted something in the course of what happened in the US with the murder of George Floyd and the following Black Lives Matters movement. In this course, the Joomla community put out a statement, and I really liked the statement. I think it was a great statement to do. To just say, okay, we as a Joomla community, we are with us. We are also opposed. We also oppose racism, discrimination, hate, and harassment and injustice. And I found this is important, and I wrote about it. So I quoted this statement and said, yeah, great, Joomla community, shout out to you. I would love to see something from my community I'm participating in too. And I would also love to help write one. So yeah, it is still in the making. It's quite a long time ago, but I hope it's not completely off the table. And people seem to like it. So 43 likes is, from my perspective at least, or for my small bubble on Twitter, is quite many likes. But there were also some disagreement on what I wrote. So this is one. Basically stating that we shouldn't involve in politics at all. We are just that's what I'm saying, open source community, and we are not a political party. People also answered to this tweet, and they said, yeah, well, sure, we are not a political party, but also what is raised here as a problem, which is discrimination and racism, are not political issues. They are human health, not human health, they are human and ethical issues. So, and just to sum it up, basically, the third tweet also in support of my statement, or speaking against that we should keep out of this discussion, which says racism is not politics. Black Lives Matter is not a political movement. So what this basically, or what all these three tweets have in common, is basically in another language, which is sort of PHP, is this. So the question we have is open source development or open source communities, do they anything have to do with politics? And all these three tweets say, no, they don't. Open source development isn't political. Open source engagement in open source community isn't political. And that's the initial point I had, or the initial spark where I thought, really? Is that so? So in case of this this PHP thing, I would say, well, if this output's false, then I think it's a bug. And my presentation tries to explain why I think so. So first, start with responsibilities as developers in general. So what if we conceive ourselves as developers? What are our responsibilities? Are they just, do we just hack out some code and hope it works, or what is it? Well, it turns out that over the course of time, we developed some values, and there was a lot of discussion around in the tech community and developer community that, oh no, that we're saying, oh no, we want to do things right. We don't accept that the code just works. We want it to be beautiful and nice and good and maintainable. And we have two sets for that. So just to name a few, we agreed on having this or that coding guidelines. We use design patterns and discuss about them, which are good and which are not so good. And these views change. Sometimes these patterns evolve, and a few years later it said, oh no, these are anti-patterns, and so on. And we established something like test-driven development, where we say, okay, it's not enough just to write code. We write code, but it needs to be right, and it needs to be tested or verified. So we write tests and make test-driven development and things like that. But even if we do so, and we write beautiful code and use the right patterns for the right things, there's still another thing we have to keep in mind. The best code and the most beautiful code doesn't help anything if it doesn't the right thing. That's different. If the code might work, but we might end up in something like this. A few of us probably know it. It's a pretty old meme already. There are different kinds of images like this, sometimes with more or less parts in it. But basically what this says, that they're obviously, when trying to find or have an idea what is really needed or what is the right thing to build, there were a lot of misunderstandings between different groups of people during this process. And yeah, in the end, basically what has been done is really not what the customer needed. So basically, this project failed in doing the right thing. But as a community, we evolved here as well and built tools or tool sets around that. And we are doing minimal viable products to enable faster iteration. So we just start very small and look how it works, and build upon that, just to be sure to not build the wrong thing, to make it right. And there's, of course, the big movement of agile development, which has a lot of aspects, where I picked only one aspect, which is what agile really enables us to do is having a very fast feedback cycle. So the idea is that, also that I do small cycles, I do sprints, small sprints, week-long sprints, and I deliver in the sprint workable set of features, or basically something that works for the customer, and the customer can give feedback. And then we iterate on that. And by doing small cycles, we make sure that that we most likely create the right thing then. And there's also something like domain-driven development, where one aspect is that when doing a project or trying to build a product, the first thing is that a domain language needs to be established, so that everybody who's on the table, everybody who has a stake, speaks the same language, so that the sling on the tree, if we're speaking from a sling on a tree, that everybody knows what is understood by that. And of course, there are more. So we are in a pretty good shape, are we? So basically, yeah, all right. If we do that, then we're done. But maybe it's important who is developing something for whom. To give just one example, and there are millions of them, I picked this one you probably also know. It's basically a soap dispenser, which works like that. Oh, no, that's not the start, sorry. So it's a soap dispenser, you put your hand beneath it, and then it dispenses soap. Works, right? Wait, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? That's strange. Now I have the video doesn't load. I try again. So it doesn't work at all here. So what's the reason? Well, the reason is the hand isn't right. The skin color is too dark. If the soap dispenser, the sensor detects a light color, then it works. With a dark color, it doesn't work, right? And that perfectly outlines what the tweet says, that it's not only important that to build the right thing. I mean, it's a soap dispenser, it works, right? But for whom does it work? Who built it? And very likely this product wasn't built or tested by people with a darker skin color, because they would have immediately realized that it doesn't work. So what is also important is not that we have small teams and do agile development and have fast feedback cycles. It's also important to have diverse teams, because different people have different perspectives on the same problem we try to solve. And by that, diverse teams are able to build more suitable products. So the soap dispenser was one example. Another example which popped in my head was the Apple Health app. It's an app on your iPhone where you can track some health-related body functions, like, I don't know, blood pressure or heart rate or trainings you do or stuff like that. And from the beginning, the Apple Health app didn't enable female persons to track their cycle. It just wasn't possible. And it took about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years until they finally implemented that, so that that females could or women could benefit or could get more out of this application. And even with the first implementation, it wasn't exactly right, but I can't remember the exact details there. But that's also a similar thing. And another thing that come to my mind is accessibility. So we are building beautiful websites with complicated web applications. And who are we targeting these to? So are they accessible for blind people, for example, or for people with color disabilities or color blindness or something like this? Do we put focus on that? I'm pretty sure many people do, but to be honest, in the projects I did, this was never a priority. And the teams I participated in, this was also not a priority, or we hadn't people experts in this, or even being disabled or not being able to see or not read well. So to really build the right thing, it is important that also a diverse team of people builds the product. So then the question comes or arises, so how do we foster the diverse teams? So why isn't this the case? It's a good question why it's not the case, but in the meantime, we need to do something for this. we need to build them. We can't just lean back and and expect that the right thing will happen. And it looks pretty easy here with my 4 steps, but in fact it's not. It is work. I won't cheat you on that. But there are a lot of talks and resources. If you just research on the internet, if you really want to do so, there's a lot of resource to find how to be how to create diverse teams. So basically, you need to be nice, inclusive, and treat everybody fair and equal. That sounds easy, but in fact isn't. And then you need to hire people, and you not only need to hire them, but also try to keep them. Yeah. So you need to have a culture where everybody is welcome and wants to stay. So this means that it's not only important that we need a diversity or diverse groups of people, but we also need to be inclusive. So what's the difference? So as an example, I explained the opposite. So that's some example of exclusive behavior, like harassment or derogative language, or so-called bro culture, which excludes women, or hero cult, where one superhero developer is admired and he is treated very well, and everybody else are just there to serve him, or things like that. Or just being ignorant could be exclusive or is exclusive, and will eventually drive away people. But it seems so obvious. What are the reasons why these things still happen, right? So just why isn't it enough to just say, okay, we just change it. Yeah, just be nice and so on. But it doesn't happen. So what could be the reasons? And there are also, again, a ton of reasons for that. I just picked two of them. And one is the so-called unconscious bias. So we not consciously decide to act in this or the other way, but we are biased. And this is one example where someone built a great product. Very interesting. It got a lot of hype, where you could just put a pixelated image into an artificial intelligence algorithm, and just like magic, it calculated with artificial intelligence and trained potential faces, the face that would perfectly pixelize to the original source. So from a pixelized image, we get probably something like the real person behind it. So how is this biased? Well, somebody tried with a pixelated image of Barack Obama. And the result is quite interesting, to say the least. The result is that Barack Obama basically looks like a white guy. So the bias here is, and the unconscious bias is, obviously they trained the artificial intelligence software only with light skin colored people, so that the result of other black skin or people of color doesn't really work. It doesn't work out. So of course this wasn't done intentionally. They just had a bias that, okay, maybe these people or these pictures of people is enough to train this AI. Obviously it wasn't. And another thing is that that hinders us to see issues is our own privilege. So what privileges are there? So wealth is a privilege. If I have more money than others, it's a privilege. Gender, unfortunately, still is a privilege. If I'm male, then I have more possibilities. There's a gender pay gap, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it is evident that it is. It is priority. We always prioritize the work we do on people with all abilities. So that's what I meant with accessibility, which isn't considered often. But also body form. If our body form reflects what is considered beautiful or nice in our current time, then I probably get seen differently, or the remarks I make are seen differently. And also skin color or heritage are also aspects which people are discriminated against because they have the wrong or non-default skin color or the wrong heritage. And yeah, I'm pretty aware that I pretty much check all these privilege checkboxes here. So I'm very much privileged, and many of us are. And many of, for example, people in the type 3 community are. So if we look here again, if we don't do anything, so if we just try to act normal and just develop things in an open source community, is it really that this isn't a political act? So to give a more detailed answer to that, we just ask ourselves, or I ask myself, what exactly is the definition of politics? And the first thing I did, of course, is I asked Google, and Google gave me 2 responses. One was the activities associated with the governance of a country or area, especially the debate between parties having power. Well, okay, that's indeed not what we in an open source community do. We are not a country. We don't have political parties. No, that's not right. But there's also a second definition or a second meaning of what politics means, and that is activities aimed at improving someone's status and increasing power within an organization. Well, open source community could be considered as organization, so it fits better. What does Wikipedia has to say? Wikipedia says, politics is a set of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups or other forms of power relations between individuals, such as the distribution of resources status. Well, that pretty much matches what we do in an open source community. We are a group of people. We're making decisions. We're making decisions based on our own views. And based on these decisions, there are some power relations, right? So, for example, I'm member of the type 3 core team. How is it called nowadays? Yeah, I think core team. And by that, because we decided as a community, somewhere it was decided that some people are picked to be member of the core team, I have more power than other people from the community. I can click the merge button, other cannot. And I decide if I think that something shouldn't be merged. I can veto things. That's more power, and it was done in a decision process. So basically, what we did, based on our own views, and I hope they are the best, we're making decisions. So there is a statement from the German feminist movement, which is "Das Private ist politisch," or to translate it in English, everything you do in private is a political act. And that, I would say, applies also for developing software, or especially developing software in an open source community. So it means that even private behavior and action you do enforces the status quo of inequality if the status quo is something of inequality. So I highlighted before that we have racism, we discriminate against people of other heritage, and we discriminate of people with other genders, especially if it's a non-binary gender. And there is inequality because of that. Women usually, or sometimes get paid lower for the same job, and so on. Black people are paid less, have less opportunity to get the right job, to get the right education, and so on. So just by doing what we do, because we have some sort of bias, we do things like we have always done, we reenact and reinforce inequality, and that's a political act, I would say. Or to put it in other words, if we hang around with people like ourselves, we, of course, we just can't judge otherwise. We decide what is good for us, even if we have the good intentions. Because of the unconsciousness of the bias we have, we decide, okay, yeah, I think it's also good for others, but I don't know exactly. And if we only hang around with people like ourselves, we establish how we are and how we act as the norm, right? So that's also one important thing to understand, is that a white male person is the norm, and people of color or female people of color deviate from the norm. And something that deviates from the norm is usually oppressed or discriminated against. And last but not least, if we only hang around with people like ourselves, we tend to ignore other people's struggles and needs because we don't need them. We don't see them. We don't see the needs. And since nobody has discriminated against me, for example, directly, I never was sexually harassed, for example, I don't exactly, maybe I know that this happens, but I can't just, I have the luxury to just ignore that. I don't have to think about that. If I go out at night and go through a park in the middle of the night, I don't have to think about if I'm getting raped or not. And this is a privilege that other people don't have. And if I go out, or if I cross the border, I don't have to think whether I'm going to picked out and kept for 1 or 2 hours and being questioned just because I look like I just don't look like a white person. So I don't experience these struggles. So to summarize, what I want to say here is that even if we don't do anything, or don't do anything specifically in the name of, okay, we want to change something, or we want to be better, or to be political and act nicer and not being discriminative and oppressive. Even if we don't do so, we are just we're just acting political. So if we don't act, and if we don't act, or other, if we act, it's always a political act. That's what I want to say. So open source development, if we are a group, and we are a group, if we're taking decisions, it's always a certain kind of decision. And this certain kind of decision isn't transparent to us that it is a political decision, and it is some kind of rules based on our views, but it is. And that's what we need to change, I think. So what can we do about it? So especially as a privileged person, we need to take on responsibility. We should educate ourselves, expand our bubble, listen to other people, what they have to say, not only people I'm comfortable with. Maybe listen to other people I'm at first not so comfortable with, and try to learn from them, try to listen to them and to understand what their point is. So what does it mean when people of color say, when they say, don't kill us? So what does this mean? And and they mean it serious, and it's a real issue. It's not that they're just discriminated against, they are killed, at least in some countries. And also, for example, in Germany, it's not very obvious. If you're in a certain bubble, and I didn't know that people are killed by the police in Germany as well. And yeah, it happens here, and it happens, and we need to listen, and we need to open our eyes. I would say that this is our responsibility. And also, it would be nice or very good or very important to give other people a voice who usually don't have one. So one example I see very often is that Twitter accounts, just a small example, of course, but it's a small step which could lead to something. Twitter accounts with a lot of reach, with a lot of followers, just let their account being taken over by other people which also have important messages to say, and yeah, and let them have a voice, have a greater reach for what they have to say, because it's important. So the point of not just educating ourselves and that's it. I have a video prepared. Unfortunately, I tried it before. You won't hear the voice of this video or the sound of this video, but it has subheadlines, is it called? I don't know. So you can read it. I will play it for you now. Yeah, I find these words quite inspiring. And yeah, that's the difference. So not just just saying, yeah, okay, of course I'm not racist, but saying that and acting like that is, I would say, our responsibility. So let's look at what I started with. So as our responsibility, from one perspective at least, is developing things right and developing the right thing. And the thing is that I want to highlight here is that we can't build the right thing if we're ignoring other people's needs or struggles. So it's our responsibility not to just say, I'm not racist, or I oppose racism, but just to be anti-racist. And I would extend to anti-ableist. So ableism, I don't know if you know it, is just ableist is just focusing on that everybody has all abilities. And be anti-fascist and be anti-sexist. Just as the least you can do, we can do, is let other people see where we stand and that we stand against it and make this visible. And I think it's our responsibility, not just because it makes us a better person or something like this, but because it's part of our job. It's part of our job is, or it is our job to build the right thing. That's one important part of our job. And yeah, we can't do this without being political in this way. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. I've collected a few resources, at least, some books and some another talk, which I also find very nice, about ethics in web development. It goes in a little bit a different direction, but has a similar tone. And I very much can only recommend that you look into the diversity initiative of Symfony, and one talk Lucas Carvey-Smith gave on SymfonyCon 18 about basically status quo, what happened after 1 year of Symfony diversity. And last but not least, if you really are a company and want to diversify your business, there's another company who can probably help you with that, and that is WittyWorks. Maybe you want to check that out too. All right. Thanks again, and maybe we can have a chat about that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Helmut. I think that was a very well done presentation, a well presented talk. So thanks again. Quite interesting. I'm with you on those topics. I also think it's important to question ourselves every day and listen to other people and be open to perspectives that are not our own. I think that's a very important lesson. But let's have a look at the other participants. If there's anything we can talk about now in a short section that we are still streaming to YouTube. I saw one question about could you share the link to the tweet, and I would generalize that to are your slides available, or your sources, and where can we find them?
Yeah, they are not yet uploaded. They are on my local computer, but I built them this time also because of accessibility reasons with Reveal.js. So basically there's a markdown file and an HTML file, and they will be online on my website. I will provide the link, and then you can just yourself click through the slides, and the tweets are just embedded tweets, so you can just follow the links and watch the videos. And the video that was the longest on the screen about being anti-racist, there's also a link to the BBC website where you have the full transcription of the text, which is also worth reading and rereading again. Once I uploaded it to my server, I will share the link.
Cool. Well, I see a lot of improvement in the chat, and people are thanking you for the presentation. No real questions, which is not really surprising for this topic. So that's not really can you show that again, or how do I do this? So I guess in this kind of topic, we shall move a little bit faster to the discussion part, which will be possible after we stopped streaming. And I will just quickly remind everybody who is up to that and who wants to talk to Helmut in person that it will be possible to join this Jitsi call in a moment. I would remind everybody who does so be kind and also to mute their microphones when they join the meeting, because we all know if there are 7 people in a meeting and everybody has an open mic, it's kind of a mess. So I have a quick look at the chat one last time, and I see people are already saying thank you again, and you can spam the applaud emoji one more time for Helmut to give him a round of applause. And I'll use the delay we have to say to the YouTube audience goodbye. Thanks for watching this session. And we see us in the next session in this track, which will be Matthias Bolt-Lesniak, also talking about open source. This will be the next session, and this one will now go into the private discussion. So goodbye, everybody.